What if I told you America's greatest superpower isn't its military? It's a piece of paper. And right now, China is quietly building a way to make that paper less important. The scary part? Most Americans haven't even noticed. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering the US dollar is no longer the world's undisputed king. That future may not happen tomorrow, but the countdown has already started, and China has been planning it for years. While Americans were watching elections, inflation, and stock markets, China was quietly building an entirely new financial system. No headlines, no panic, just one silent move after another that could reshape global power.
On a quiet morning in 2023, Saudi Arabia sold oil to China. Nothing unusual there, except this time, no dollars changed hands. For 80 years, that transaction was supposed to be impossible. Oil meant dollars. Dollars meant power. That was the deal. Nobody announced it on the news. There was no press conference. But somewhere in Beijing, a very quiet, very patient plan just moved one step closer to finished. This is not a story about a crash. It's not a story about the dollar collapsing tomorrow. It's slower than that, and honestly, that makes it more dangerous. Because empires don't usually fall in a single afternoon. They get replaced one invoice at a time. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why the most important currency war of the century isn't being fought with tanks or sanctions. It's being fought with spreadsheets, pipelines, and gold bars sitting quietly in vaults you've never heard of. Here's why this matters right now, in a way it didn't 10 years ago. The United States runs on a simple trick. It prints the world's reserve currency, and the world has to hold it. Central banks in Japan, in Brazil, in Nigeria, they all keep piles of dollars, not because they love America, but because oil is priced in dollars, trade is settled in dollars, and debt is denominated in dollars. That demand is what lets the U.S. borrow trillions at low interest rates, while other countries pay a premium just to survive a bad year. Economists have a name for this. They call it exorbitant privilege. A French finance minister coined that phrase back in the 1960s, half joking, half furious, because France was tired of watching America pay its bills in a currency it could simply create out of thin air. Now, fast forward to today. The U.S. national debt just crossed $36 trillion. Interest payments on that debt now cost more than the entire U.S. defense budget. And the country that's been quietly buying more gold than any other central bank on Earth 4 years running is not Russia, it's not India, it's China. That's not a coincidence. That's a strategy. So let's break down how this actually works, because the mechanics are simpler than Wall Street wants you to think. Step 1. China has spent the last decade building an entire financial architecture that runs parallel to the American one, quietly, almost boringly on purpose. In 2015, they launched something called CIPS, the Cross-Border Interpayment System. Think of it as China's answer to SWIFT, the messaging network that basically every international wire transfer on the planet depends on. SWIFT is headquartered in Belgium, but functionally it lives under American influence because the US can lean on it to freeze countries out of the global financial system. Iran found that out. Russia found that out in 2022 and watched almost overnight as its banks got cut off from the world. China watched that happen and took notes. If Washington can weaponize the dollar system on anyone it wants, then depending on that system is a liability, not a convenience. Step 2. The digital yuan, or ECNY. China has already run pilot programs across dozens of cities, testing a state-backed digital currency that settles instantly without needing a single American bank in the middle of the transaction. Step 3, and this is the quiet one, something called mBridge. It's a cross-border digital currency platform built with the central banks of Thailand, the UAE, Hong Kong, and Saudi Arabia, allowing them to settle trade directly in local currencies, digitally, instantly, with no dollar conversion required at any point. None of this made headlines the way a stock market crash would, but each piece is a brick, and bricks stacked patiently enough eventually become a wall. Now here's the uncomfortable math nobody wants to say out loud on cable news. The dollar still makes up about 58% of global foreign exchange reserves. That sounds dominant, and it is, but rewind to the year 2000, and that number was over 70%. That's not a collapse, that's an erosion, slow, steady, almost invisible year to year, until you zoom out and realize an entire decade just quietly slipped away. Meanwhile, China has settled trade in yuan with Russia, with Brazil, with Argentina, with Saudi Arabia. Not enormous volumes yet, but 5 years ago, most of these deals didn't exist at all. Here's the part that should genuinely make you sit up. China now holds less U.S. Treasury debt than it did a decade ago, down from over $1.3 trillion to under $800 billion. At the same time, its central bank has been stacking gold like it's preparing for a storm nobody else can see yet. Gold doesn't care about sanctions. Gold doesn't need SWIFT. Gold doesn't ask permission from Washington. You don't buy that much gold that consistently unless you're hedging against a system you no longer fully trust.
But, and this is where the hype needs a reality check, the yuan replacing the dollar tomorrow is not happening. Not close. Here's the irony. For the yuan to become a true global reserve currency, China would need to do the one thing its entire economic model is built to avoid: open its capital account, let money flow freely in and out, and let markets, not the Communist Party, decide the yuan's value. China wants the power of a reserve currency without giving up the control of a command economy. That's like hosting the party but refusing to unlock the front door. You can't have both. Not fully. Not yet. So the yuan sits at around 3% of global reserves. 3%. After a decade of effort, headlines, and gold buying sprees, that's where it stands. The dollar isn't being replaced. It's being slowly, carefully hedged against. That's a different story than the one most YouTube thumbnails are selling you. And it's actually the more interesting one, because it means China isn't racing to win a currency war overnight. It's building an escape hatch, just in case it ever needs one. So, zoom out for a second, because this is bigger than China versus America. What we're actually watching is the slow construction of a parallel financial world, one where a growing number of countries have an option, not a replacement, an option to route around Washington if they're ever sanctioned, frozen out, or simply tired of paying a dollar tax on every barrel of oil they buy. That optionality is the real threat, not because the dollar falls tomorrow, but because the next time the US reaches for sanctions as a weapon, the target might have somewhere else to go. And here's the quiet absurdity in all of this. The very tool that gave America unmatched global power, the ability to freeze anyone out of the dollar system, is the same tool now convincing half the world to quietly build a backup plan. Power used too freely has a strange side effect. It teaches everyone else how to live without you. So where does this actually leave us? The dollar isn't dying. It's not 2008. It's not some sudden collapse waiting around the corner. But it is aging into a world with company it didn't used to have. A digital yuan, a gold-backed hedge, a payment network built specifically to survive without American permission. The real question isn't whether the dollar gets replaced. It's whether the United States keeps giving the rest of the world enough reasons to want an alternative. Because empires rarely lose their currency in a single dramatic moment. They lose it the way you lose trust, quietly, transaction by transaction, until one day the world simply stops asking permission. If you want to understand just how much concentrated power already sits in a handful of hands, long before China even enters the picture, go watch the video on your screen right now about the biggest monopoly in history. It'll change how you see every market you thought was competitive.